I stood there, staring at the screen of my phone, my heart pounding in my chest. My father's message was blunt: "You're on your own. I'm not a bank." I hadn't asked for much. Just $500 to fix my car so I could get to work. Was that too much to ask? Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. He was sitting in his penthouse, probably sipping some overpriced wine, while I stood in the pharmacy line, clutching a prescription for antibiotics I wasn't sure I could afford. His Porsche was parked outside his luxurious apartment. His weekends were spent on golf courses, paying $50,000 a year just for the privilege of being a member. To him, $500 was nothing. To me, it was the difference between keeping my job and losing it. I hadn't asked for a handout. I hadn't asked for his wealth or his support. I had just needed a small loan to fix my car, a loan I promised to pay back with interest in 2 weeks. But now, it seemed, I was on my own. I stared at his words again, feeling the sting. "You're on your own." I stood there in the parking lot of the pharmacy, my car sputtering and dying before it even started. I couldn't help but wonder, was this how he saw me? A failure? A disappointment? He thought I couldn't make it without him. I tried to hold back the tears, but something in me snapped. I was done. I started the engine, the grinding noise sending chills through my spine, but it roared to life. As I drove away, I felt something heavy settle inside me, a cold realization. He had always seen himself as the self-made success, the one who didn't need anyone. But what he didn't know was that I had been silently supporting him for the past 2 years, paying for his lavish lifestyle without him even realizing it. I had been the one keeping the charade going. I was a tech CEO. I had built a company, Nexus AI, from the ground up. My software was licensed by major Fortune 500 companies, and I was making millions. Yet, I had kept all of this a secret, all for the sake of his ego. But now, I was done pretending. My father had made some terrible financial decisions a couple of years ago. He lost everything, his investments, his assets, his status. And instead of coming to me for help, he kept it all hidden. When I found out, I couldn't just watch him go bankrupt. So, I did what I thought was right. I set up a shell company, Phoenix Capital, and started funneling money into his life to keep up the illusion of success. I paid for his penthouse, his car, his country club membership, everything. But when I needed something so small in return, when I asked for just $500, he turned his back on me. And that's when I realized, I wasn't just supporting him anymore. I had been living a lie. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have helped your parent, even when they never believed in you? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like if you think it's time to stand up for yourself. Stay tuned for the next part of my story. I drove away, the weight of my decision pressing down on me like 1,000 pounds. My car barely held together, but it was mine, and that was all that mattered right now. I couldn't even afford the prescription I'd just left behind, but somehow, I wasn't angry. In fact, I felt a sense of cold clarity. I hadn't realized how much I had been pretending. Pretending to be the struggling daughter when I was actually sitting on a fortune. Pretending to be the failure when I had built an empire. Pretending to need my father's approval when, in reality, I had been paying for the life he was living. The irony hit me harder than I could have imagined. I parked my car in the nearest lot and pulled out my phone. I opened my email app and began typing a message to my assistant. I didn't hesitate. Subject: immediate termination of contract. Leah, effective immediately, please terminate the consulting agreement with Richard Miller and cease all monthly payments. Dissolve the Phoenix Capital Shell Company. Thank you. I hit send and sat there for a moment, feeling the surge of power that came with making a choice like that. I had just cut him off. Completely. The man who thought he was the reason I succeeded. The man who called me a failure when I asked for help. He would never know it, but I had just taken control of my life, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me again. I wasn't done. If I was on my own, then I was going to look the part. I drove to the nearest Mercedes dealership, my mind set on one thing: I needed to remind myself who I was. The salesman barely glanced up as I walked in, clearly unimpressed by my worn-out jeans and the grease stain on my shirt from trying to fix my car. "Miss, the used lot is down the road," he said, barely hiding his disdain. "We don't do financing for high-risk profiles here." I didn't flinch. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out my Centurion card, the black titanium card, a symbol of success that only the truly elite could possess. I slammed it on the counter with a satisfying clink. "I'm not looking for used," I said calmly. "And I don't need financing. I want the G-Wagon in the showroom. The matte black one. And I want to drive it off the lot in an hour." His face went from condescending to horrified in a split second. He stammered, trying to process what I had just said. "Yes, ma'am." "Right away, ma'am," he muttered, his eyes wide. "Can I get you an espresso?" The whole experience felt surreal. For years, I had kept my wealth hidden, suppressing my success just to avoid making my father feel small. But now, I felt a sense of liberation, as though I had just broken free from an invisible chain. Driving home in that $180,000 car was like a dream, strange, but somehow, it felt right. It felt like I was finally me. The version of myself I had buried under layers of self-doubt and false modesty for too long. Have you ever hidden your true potential just to avoid making others uncomfortable? How did it feel when you finally stopped pretending? Tell me in the comments, and make sure to like this video if you think it's time to live authentically. Don't go anywhere, there's more to this story. 2 days later, my phone rang. The familiar number flashed on the screen, my father's. I stared at it for a moment before answering. "Lily, meet me at the club for lunch at 12:30. Don't be late, and try to dress presentable. I have friends there." He didn't ask how I was doing, didn't even mention the $500 I had asked for. Instead, he was all business, as if nothing had happened. The 15th of the month, the day his consulting fee was usually deposited into his account. It was obvious he was anticipating his next check. "I'll be there," I said, trying to sound calm. I pulled up to the entrance of the exclusive country club at 12:29, a slight smirk on my face. The valet, who normally sneered at my old, beat-up Honda, practically tripped over himself to open the door of my brand-new G-Wagon. "New ride, Miss Miller?" he asked, wide-eyed. "Something like that, Jimmy," I said, handing him a $100 bill. "Keep it close." I walked into the dining room with a confidence that I hadn't had before. I wasn't wearing thrift store clothes anymore. I was in a tailored Italian suit, one I had bought on a business trip to Paris, the one I had told my father was for a friend's wedding. I looked every bit the part of the CEO I had become. Dad was sitting at his usual table by the window, nursing a scotch. When he saw me, his jaw dropped. His eyes flicked from my suit to my designer bag, then back to my face, confusion flickering across his features. "What is this?" he asked, his voice dripping with suspicion. "Hello to you too, Dad," I said coolly, ordering an iced tea from the waiter. I didn't care about his tone. This was my moment. "Did you steal money or are you dating some rich old guy?" he asked, his words sharp and mocking. "Is that how you fixed your car?" I didn't let his bitterness rattle me. "No, Dad. I didn't steal money. And I didn't date some rich old guy. I fixed my car the way I've always fixed things, on my own." His eyes narrowed. He didn't like where this was going, but I wasn't done. I leaned back in my chair, looking at him. I came here to return a favor. You told me I was on my own, remember? You made it clear that I should stop carrying dead weight. He scoffed, taking another sip of his drink. Good. It's about time you grew up. I could feel the tension building. I didn't care about his approval anymore. But it was at that moment that he checked his phone, refreshing his banking app with a frown. He did it again. His fingers swiped the screen aggressively, his face growing darker by the second. Is something wrong? I asked innocently, though I already knew the answer. He mumbled under his breath, his eyes darting around the table, tapping the screen furiously. It's nothing. The delay. My consulting fee usually clears by noon. The bank must be having a glitch. I smiled, watching him squirm. Phoenix Capital? I asked. He froze. His glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Slowly, he looked up at me, a strange look in his eyes. How do you know the name of my investment firm? He whispered. I leaned forward, my voice steady. I know a lot of things, Dad. The phone rang. It was Mr. Henderson, the man who had managed Phoenix Capital. My father snatched the phone up, hoping it was an apology for the delay. He wanted to show off his importance, but that's not what he got. Mr. Henderson, where's my wire? Dad barked, his voice loud and impatient. I have a tea time in 20 minutes, and I need to settle my tab. This incompetence is unacceptable. But Mr. Henderson's voice came through, crisp and professional, the tone carrying a sense of finality. I'm calling to inform you, Mr. Miller, that Phoenix Capital has been dissolved, effective immediately. Your contract is terminated. Dad froze. For a moment, there was complete silence at the table. He laughed nervously, trying to cover up the shock. Terminated? You can't terminate me. I'm the vital consultant. I'm the reason the fund makes money. My strategies are the backbone of your portfolio, he protested. I could hear the dry amusement in Henderson's voice as he responded. Actually, Mr. Miller, you were a charity case. The fund never made money from your advice. Your investment tips were terrible. We bet against everything you suggested. You were being paid a stipend by a silent benefactor. Dad's face turned pale. A benefactor? He gasped. I kept my eyes on him, watching the realization slowly dawn on him. Who? He demanded, looking at me. The silence between us was deafening as Henderson spoke again. The owner of Phoenix Capital is a her. Dad's mouth hung open. He looked at the phone, then slowly turned his gaze to me. I took a sip of my iced tea, leaning forward, my voice clear and calm. Mr. Henderson, I think he gets the message. You can hang up now. Henderson agreed. Yes, Miss Miller. Have a good lunch. The silence that followed was thick and heavy. My father, the man who had once claimed to be self-made, looked at me like I was a ghost. You were the one, he whispered, disbelief coating his voice. I smiled softly, savoring the moment. For 2 years, every penny you spent, the penthouse, the Porsche, the country club membership, it all came from Nexus AI. My company. The one you said was a stupid idea. His face contorted in confusion. But you asked me for $500 for your car. I thought you were broke. I nodded slowly, my voice quieter now, but filled with a certain finality. I wanted to see if you would help me. I wanted to see if, after I gave you $500,000 over 2 years, you would give me $500 when I needed it. I wanted to know if you were my father, or just a leech. Can you believe the shock on his face? I'd love to know, would you have ever expected your own parent to turn against you like that? Tell me in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that like button and stay tuned, there's more coming. The moment I stood up, I could feel the power shift. My father's hand reached out, trembling, as if he were trying to grasp something that had slipped through his fingers, his pride, his control. "Wait, Lily," he called out, his voice unsteady, panic starting to seep through. "You can't just cut me off. The rent's due next week. The lease is in the company name. The company doesn't exist anymore." I didn't look back, but I heard him scramble, heard the desperation rising in his voice as I walked away from the table. "I canceled it this morning," I said, my words cold, final. "You have 30 days to vacate." His face twisted in disbelief. "You can't do this," he shouted, standing up so abruptly that his chair scraped against the floor. Heads turned in the restaurant, but I didn't care. "I'm your father," he cried, his voice shaking. "And I'm a failure, remember?" I said, turning back just long enough to meet his gaze, the words cutting deeper than I meant. I'd spent so many years trying to please him, hiding my success, bending myself to fit into the mold he created. But no more. I felt the tears prickle up my eyes, not because I was sad, but because, for the first time in my life, I realized something important: I had to save myself. If I didn't, no one else would. I heard his voice again, weak and desperate, but I kept walking. "Who's going to pay the bill?" he shouted, gesturing to the expensive food and drinks in front of him. "You're not just going to leave me like this, are you?" I paused at the door, glancing back at him. The waiter was standing, frozen, watching the whole scene unfold, eyes wide. I turned to the waiter and smiled, walking over to him and placing a $200 bill in his hand. "He's a self-made man," I said, my voice steady, the irony of the words hanging in the air. "He can handle it." I stepped out of the country club and into my new G-Wagon, the engine purring like a cat, a sound that felt like freedom itself. I glanced in the rearview mirror, watching as the manager of the club walked over to my father's table. I didn't stay to watch the scene that followed, but I didn't need to. I knew what was coming. News travels fast in elite circles, especially when a well-known tycoon is left holding the bag. I could already hear the whispers of the club's staff, the murmurs of my father's downfall, the way it would spread to every corner of his so-called world. And I wasn't even sorry. 3 days later, the repo man took his Porsche. It happened quietly, but it was final. 2 weeks after that, I heard from a family friend that my father had been evicted from the penthouse. He had nothing left but the memories of his lavish life and the empty promises he'd made. I sat in my corner office at Nexus AI, the city skyline spread out before me. The company I had built from the ground up. The company he had told me was a waste of time. The company that had turned me into a millionaire. My assistant buzzed me. "Miss Miller, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says he's your father. He doesn't have an appointment." I didn't need to look at the security footage. I knew exactly who it was. I looked out the window, where my father was standing in the sleek glass lobby of the building I owned. His suit, once crisp and designer, now looked worn and too large for him. His ego had deflated just as quickly as his wealth had, and now, here he was, standing at the doorstep of the life he had once mocked. "Send him up," I said, my voice calm. The elevator doors opened a few minutes later, and there he was. My father, disheveled, tired, and looking older than I remembered. He stopped in his tracks when he saw the office, the trophies and awards lining the walls, the team of developers working outside in the open-plan space, the city sprawling beneath us. He took it all in, but his eyes didn't sparkle with pride. They were hollow. "You built this?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. "I did," I said. "Well, you were telling me I was wasting my time." He slumped into the chair across from me, defeated. The self-assured Richard Miller, the man who had spent years telling me I wasn't enough, wasn't cut out for success, wasn't worth anything, was gone. In his place was a man who had lost everything. The silence between us grew, heavy and uncomfortable. "I'm staying at your Aunt Martha's," he muttered, his eyes downcast. "It's humiliating." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He had made his own bed, and now he had to lie in it. "I know this is getting intense, but tell me in the comments, have you ever had to cut someone out of your life, even if they were family? How did it feel to finally take control? Let me know what you think, and make sure to like and subscribe for more of this story. There's a lot more to come." The silence lingered between us, thick with unspoken words. My father's eyes were red, the weariness of his new life written all over his face. For the first time, I saw him not as the man who had taught me that I'd never be good enough, but as a man broken by his own mistakes. He shifted in his seat, his pride and ego still fighting, even now. "Lily." His voice cracked slightly, as if the words were foreign to him. "I'm sorry. I didn't understand. I didn't realize what you were doing, what you'd built." He looked at me, his gaze hollow. "I was hard on you. I thought it would make you stronger. I thought you needed to struggle, to fail. But you didn't fail. You succeeded." There was a moment where I thought he might actually be apologizing. Maybe it was the exhaustion in his voice, or the way he seemed so vulnerable, but for a split second, I thought that maybe, just maybe, this man, the one who had torn me down my whole life, was finally seeing me. Finally admitting that I had done something remarkable. But then the words that followed shattered any illusion of an apology. "You have to understand," he continued, his voice rising. "I made you tough. If I had coddled you, you wouldn't be the CEO you are now. I gave you the motivation, the drive." He gestured around the room, his smile desperate, trying to grasp at any thread of dignity he had left. "It worked, didn't it? I pushed you. And look at you now. You're successful because of me." I stared at him, incredulous. Could he really believe that? Could he truly think he played some kind of pivotal role in my success? After everything he had put me through, after all the years of watching him squander his wealth while I quietly saved his reputation, was this what he really thought? "You didn't help me, Dad," I said, my voice cold as ice. "You were an obstacle. You weren't the reason I made it. I succeeded despite you, not because of you." My heart twisted with the sting of the truth, but I couldn't let it go unsaid. "You watched me struggle for years, telling me I wasn't good enough while you spent my money on golf fees and wine. Don't rewrite history." For a moment, he seemed to falter, the words hitting harder than I thought they would. But then the guilt trip came, of course. The familiar tactic he had always used to make me feel responsible for his misery. "But we're family," he said, his voice rising. "You can't just turn your back on me. I'm your father. You can't let me sleep on a couch while you live like this." His eyes, wide and pleading, stared at me as if I owed him something, anything, to make up for his failures. But I couldn't give him what he wanted. Not anymore. "I'm sorry, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "I've done enough. You told me to figure it out. You told me I was on my own." I paused for a moment, gathering the strength to deliver the final blow. "Well, now I'm giving you the same chance. You can either take responsibility for your life or you can leave. Your choice." He stared at the piece of paper I slid across the table, a job application. A simple, humble job application for a position in the mailroom at Nexus AI. A $20 an hour job. No more, no less. He looked at it in disgust, his face contorting as if I had slapped him. "The mailroom? I'm Richard Miller. I don't sort mail. I leaned back in my chair, not letting him see how much this moment meant to me. I wasn't mocking him. I was giving him the only chance he had left. It's an honest living, I said calmly. It's a steady paycheck. It has health benefits. It's more than you have right now. And, frankly, it's more than you deserve. He stood up, the paper crumpling in his fist. His face twisted in offense and pride, his dignity hanging by a thread. I'll find my own way, he spat, his voice filled with anger. I don't need your charity. I watched him storm out of my office, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the weight of guilt. I didn't feel the responsibility of fixing him. I had done everything I could. Now, it was up to him to figure it out. Weeks passed, and I heard little from him. The rumors, however, spread fast. He had bounced between relatives until he wore out his welcome. Last I heard, he was working at a used car lot, telling anyone who would listen that his ungrateful billionaire daughter had stolen his ideas and left him with nothing. I didn't visit him. I didn't send him checks. But I didn't forget what he had done to me either. Every month, I took the $20,000 I used to send him and put it into a scholarship fund for students who had been cut off by their parents, students who had nowhere else to turn but to their own strength. I helped them finish school, start businesses, and build their future, just like I had done. My transmission was fixed. My company was thriving. And for the first time in my life, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see the disappointment. I didn't see the failure. I saw the woman who had saved herself, who had built her life from the ground up despite every obstacle. What do you think? If your parent took credit for your success after rejecting you for so long, would you forgive them? Would you offer them a chance to redeem themselves? Tell me in the comments below. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone in this. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life.